in the beginning you're very worried about not being in the right place at the right time, and the newbies are all a little bit of deer in headlights, if you like. But my first question time, I just turned to my two colleagues on either side of me, and we were all just like, this is so exciting. We were like, yeah, it's so much fun.
The presenting sponsor for Socially Democratic is Dunn Street. Dunn Street is a campaign agency that specialises in community organising. We only work with people who want to build power to make the world a better place. And if you want to create change in 2025, then hit us up at dunnstreet.com.au. A special shout out to all of our Patreon members as well. And you can join our community for free or for as little as $1.50 a month. And you too can help support this podcast. All paid members receive a welcome gift. So if you have recently signed up, please check your inbox for a message from our producer asking for your shipping address, because without that, then we can't send you your merch. And finally, today's episode is brought to you by Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. For over a century, Maurice Blackburn has stood up for fairness, championing the rights of everyday Australians and shaping landmark legal reforms. Today, they're harnessing new technologies to make justice more accessible, more efficient, and more responsive to the needs of modern Australia. All right, let's get on with today's episode. All right, we are taping this one on a Friday morning on the lands of the Wurundjeri people. Our next guest was quite a formidable presence in her own community for a long time before she sought public office, but her victory over the Greens leader, Adam Bandt, for the seat of Melbourne was a surprise to many, including myself. But I'm wondering, was it a surprise to her? Well, let's find out, because she joins us on the line now. Sarah Witty, welcome to Socially Democratic.
Well, hello, and thanks for having me.
You definitely have only just moved in, because I know that folks that are listening to the show can't see, but looking at those bare cupboards behind you.
Yeah, I know. People keep telling me to fill it up, but I haven't had time to worry about, things on my shelf because I'm out meeting people. But they're starting to get a few books of the organisations I've met as they start to show me a bit about what they're up to. So anyway, great. I'll get there.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it is only 3 months since you slayed the green dragon, so to speak. So does it feel like 3 months or 3 years?
It actually feels like both of those at once. It feels like, it was only a short time ago, but the amount of things I've done in those 3 months, it feels like normally I would have filled that up definitely in a 3-year lifetime. It feels like a lifetime, but yeah.
Well, I mean, even looking at your Instagram feed, like, it's packed. From the moment you got elected to today. It's you've been out there obviously doing a lot of engagement with the community, and obviously you've had to head to Parliament back and forth a bit as well. So lots going on in the electorate of Melbourne. So you've certainly hit the ground running. Why does it feel like it's been like almost 3 years? Like
it's just because it's been constant. So when we've been in Melbourne, when I've been in Melbourne, there's a lot of community engagement. So, back-to-back meeting people and getting up to speed with a lot of the organisations that, wanting to have a chat with me. And then also it's that it's a big learning curve when you're in Canberra. Was a big learning curve for me. So that takes a lot of mental energy as well. And getting through that, it just feels like, I crammed in a lot in such a small amount of time. But that being said, it also feels like just the other day that I was elected. So.
Well, I want to talk about the election in a moment, but before we do that, let's sort of introduce Sarah Witty to the wider socially democratic community, for those particularly outside of the state of Victoria that probably don't know your background. What were you doing before you entered into politics? Like, where were your sort of where were your values shaped?
If you're talking about values being shaped, it was probably from my mum and dad. Right from the beginning, I came from a very loving, well-supported family who taught me about hard work and always to tell the truth and never to leave anyone behind. And so a part of that then flowed on into, I came into the most recently, just before being elected, I was employed as the CEO of the Nappy Collective. So that's an organisation that when parents of, children have grown out of their nappies or toilet trained too quickly, we ask them to donate to us, and then we just redistribute them to families in crisis. So I was doing some really sort of work that filled me up and that I loved to do, and I loved supporting children and families, and that's probably a real part of the purpose why I said I put my hand up to run.
Where did that intention come from in terms of like wanting to, like this being the CEO of the Nappy Collective, and looking at your CV there as well, you've done some work in terms of homes for homes. I'll get you to explain that in a minute. But where did that desire come from to want to support other people in the community?
It's kind of one of those things that sort of was a step process. When I was in school, I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so I always sort of changed a few different, still working it out. I changed to a few different careers, if you like. Everyone sort of said that I'm always changing my jobs, but I wasn't so much. I was sort of just trying to work it out. And then the main thing that happened in my life was I wasn't able to be a mother. So as a result of that, I went into becoming a foster carer to sort of fill that need of wanting to, have children in my life.
Yeah.
And because of that, I started to be closer to families and seeing some real challenges and seeing through no fault of their own, both for the children and sometimes often the parents as well, that they'd found themselves in these really awful situations. And I just started to, through that life experience of being a foster carer, I wanted to work out how I could give back. I've always had a keen interest in housing as well. I've always, loved looking at property and being a part of that, but also aware that people can't afford property. So that's what that first step into the community sector was with the Homes for Homes, which allowed me to bring my real business acumen that I'd done through banking and in the business world, and bring that in and into the real estate world, and bring that into the community sector and use those skills to help get build houses. I was raising money for bricks and mortar for housing. And then that led me into stepping further in and becoming the CEO of the Nappy Collective. So it was always a bit of a journey. It was never yes, I want to do this. It was just like life happened. And through my life, I thought, I wanted to start giving back. And I was lucky enough to be able to do that.
I hate people who have already worked out what their strategic plan was. I was never that person as well, which is funny because in organising you should have a strategic goal and know how to work towards it. But I just kept on falling, like the confidence of a middle-class white man, I just kept on falling forward into different sort of avenues and never kind of planned out to be an organiser, I guess. But so I admire the fact that you're the same. Good on you. I need more people like you in my life.
Yeah. I mean, I said it up until probably the last time I said, now that I'm in politics, but every job before that, I've still said I don't know what I want to be until when I grow up, because I was always changing. But now I know exactly what I want to be. So.
When you moved into sort of the community sector, what did you identify you said you're coming from a banking background? What were some of the outlying challenges that folks have in the community sector that you identified and said, okay, I think my resources can help commit to this to overcome some of those challenges?
It's hard to express it, but there is it's a speed. There's a speed of the way you work in the business, particularly in banking or real estate. It's all sort of focused on the end goal of making money, if you like, and there's a speed to it. And when you move into the community sector, I had to particularly really pull it back and say, I can't go at the pace as I wanted to. But the people that, from my experience, and I don't mean everybody, but quite often the people who spent their lives in the community sector, they knew that a very purposeful job and that, it was very rewarding. But sometimes they missed some of that inside knowledge of what the corporate sector was doing. And the people in the corporate sector really understood, how to, do their job, but missed that community and wanting to give back. And so when I was lucky enough to step from one to the other, I really saw that gap, that bridge, and the community sector now, they spend the whole time they know that there's, resource in terms of people and money in the corporate sector and vice versa in terms of corporate sector wanting to give back, but sometimes they can't find each other. So it was good for me to have those skills across both of the sectors to be able to use my business understanding for a greater good. And I really lent into that a lot. And I think that's why we were able to turn the Napier Collective particularly around from, just about closing down to, more than double of any past year. So
why is it, do you think, that they can't find each other, the business community and the sort of the civic?
I can only speak to my experience, but if you're in the community sector, you're overworked and underpaid, and you don't have a second to try and find the corporate sector. And in the corporate sector, they're so focused on that end goal of having to meet their KPIs and whatnot that they don't necessarily have the time as well to find the community sector. So I just feel like they both want each other and need each other, but there's such it's very easy to look at big business and say, oh, I want to partner with X bank or whatever because they've got all the money. But actually there's that whole sort of small to medium business sector, which from a community point of view, they have to speak to all of them, and then they have to find out what they need for their employees, or their what's their passion, and it's just time to be able to cross that over. And I know there's some really great people that are helping to bridge that gap for the two sectors, and I really do think that there's some enormous resources on both sides, and if we could get them together, it would be better for everybody. Better for the people that are, my job's boring every day, 9 to 5, I'm getting a little bit bored, and get that heart feeling of, giving back to the community and really feeling good about their lives, and vice versa, the people that are already doing that, to be able to, get some of the cash they need and some of the resources and the support they need to be able to do the really good stuff that they do. So.
Yeah. Did the Labor Party find you, or did you find the Labor Party?
We found each other. I'd have to say we found each other. I was starting to, like I said, I sort of went on this journey, in my own personal life, and I started to lead me to think about politics, which was first sort of opened up to me when I started working with Homes for Homes. And I never before that, so that was only in the last, 6 years or so, never before that had I even given any thought to politics. And I started to think about that maybe this is something I wanted to sort of lean into, and I started to look around to see what that would look like in terms of my journey. And every person that I came across and had a conversation with that seemed to be the right person to talk with, or, they seemed like my people, they were always Labor. And so it just, as I was finding my way through this, cloud of, what does politics look like, every sort of bit of light that came through was always someone from Labor, and they just seemed to be my people. So, yeah, I truly think we found each other.
There's lots of ways in which you can get involved in the broader Labor movement, in particular the political side of it all. But why did you want to seek public office? Why was that the next natural step for you, do you think?
I think I've always been I've always wanted to be the person in front. I've always put myself out there and wanted to be in front. Not to say that I've been seeking, I don't know, but just my jobs have always been sort of people facing and talking with people. And I just felt like, being the member was the right role for me. It's just been a similar sort of way. Even with corporate, I was working in a new business sort of way, and I was talking to a lot of people. And it felt like my skills were the right ones to do. I'm not as good in the, sort of the back end sort of workforce. I've got people that are much better at that than me.
I don't think that, as a former party official, I don't think we can ever really prepare our candidates for what that experience actually will be. But I'm interested in getting an understanding of what you thought running for public office would look like, as opposed to then when you started a running, you go, oh, this is a completely different ballgame altogether. Or was it something that sort of met those expectations?
So for me, it felt exactly like what I'd been doing in terms of when I was working in business and real estate. I know it might not seem right to some people that have been working in the public sector, but for me, I was always I was always successful in those roles because I talked to as many people as possible, found out what was important to them, and then fed back to them or repeated back to them how I could help with that. So whether I was, doing, small business banking when I was lending, find out about people's businesses, and then work out how I could, help them out. And so when I was campaigning, it was very similar in that you went out, you talked to people, understand what is important to them, and then bring back to them how Labor can help them with that key importance. So I really sort of lent into that new business skills right at the start of my career, which I've, even when I was selling, working in in restaurants and things like that, it was just people facing, being friendly, understanding them, and caring about, hearing what they had to say. And then, making sure that they knew what was important to them was also something that Labor did.
I'm assuming you knocked on a fair few doors over the course of the campaign. Did you sense that there was a mood for change in the electorate? The expectations were that this wasn't even a target seat, that we weren't going to win Melbourne. Melbourne, we'd seen so many other Labor candidates go before you that got belted by Adam Bandt. So this was just going to be, you were just doing God's work in standing up for Labor in that electorate of the federal election. But did you get a sense that there was a mood for change in the electorate, talking to folks on the doors?
Absolutely. I'll start off by saying when I was asked to run, I was told, you probably won't win, it's against the leader, he's well known and all the rest of it. And I sort of thought, okay, well, it'll be a good experience for me. Like I said, I'm still working out what I want to be, so I'll give it a go. But literally from day one, from my first conversations, it was straight away people were coming up to me and saying, hey, look, I've voted for Greens for X amount of years. I can't do it this time for whatever reasons. Everybody had a different reason. And I want to find out about you. What do you have? What do you bring? And so then the conversation just, lent into that. So absolutely. And that wasn't just a one-off. That was constantly people saying that same virtually the same thing. I can't do it again. I've done it before. I just can't do it again. For me, it wasn't so much of a surprise. I knew that we were, I knew there was a definite shift. I just didn't know how far the shift would come. No one can know. And one thing I will say though is the person who was the most surprised is the person who's not sitting in this seat at the moment, and he would not be, he wouldn't have been surprised if he was out talking to the people like I was, because it was a definite swing against, and not just in parts of the electorate, it was all over. Everybody had the same sort of feel about it. So, yeah.
You sort of touched on some of the obviously there was a mood for change and people were saying not this time. What were some of the topics or issues that you were hearing on the doors or in those conversations with traditional Green voters that were saying, hey, I'm looking elsewhere this time?
Look, I didn't go into it too much because I wasn't interested in hearing about my opponent. I was interested in hearing about them and what was important to them, not what they did, not what wasn't important anymore, but what was important now.
Yep.
And then because that the way that was phrased and that was repeated, like I said, it gave me the opportunity to introduce myself. So I didn't spend as much time finding out about why. And I have been asked that question a few times and I haven't been able to answer it because I just didn't go there.
But what were the issues that were important to them then? What was the things that were guiding their vote when they were going to walk into that ballot box on the Saturday or in pre-poll?
It was about having a member that represented them. It was about someone who was in the community and not out, talking about things on the other side of the world. They wanted to have someone who cared about the things that were important to them, and whether that was family. It was real local, real basic, back to basics kind of conversations, cost of living conversations, how real sort of family oriented conversations, real, everyday, this is me and this is my community and how can you help? So, yeah.
Going back to as far back as 2010 or 2013 federal elections, there was a perennial debate within the party about how do we beat the Greens in the inner city, particularly in Melbourne. And there was sort of one side that was that we need to be more left-wing than the Greens and, rest in peace to Kath Botel and Sophie Ishmael's campaigns versus sort of, no, we need to punch the Greens in the face, which was something that was approached by the late Fiona Richardson at the state level. But in truth, maybe the answer lies somewhere in between. But I'm interested, you did beat the Greens. So where do you think this not a secret sauce, but what was the secret to your success that enabled you to win, do you think?
I know what it was really is that I gave no thought to the Greens at all. I wasn't ever a part of those conversations because, like I said, I was relatively new to politics. So I never had any of those preconceived ideas about how to. I just went out there and I was me. So I just did the things that I knew that would work, which was talking to people, understanding what their needs were, and representing Labor for those needs, and just, real grind work hard, talking to as many people as possible, being out as much as possible, and listening. So I didn't have any strategic thoughts around how to beat the Greens. I just was out there going, well, this is me, and if you like me, vote for me.
I was talking to a colleague of yours and mine. I won't name them because I don't know if they want to be named on the podcast, but they had said one of the reasons why Sarah won was Sarah was being Sarah, and she was just being practical in terms of, being a strong Labor candidate. And it sort of goes to what you just said there. Obviously, if Labor can offer things in a practical way for voters in that particular community, then they will respond to it. Did you get that sense that was the case?
So I was out being me, but I also had this really amazing movement within Labor where they were really focused on what people wanted and needed. So I could be, take that with me, and be confident in saying, this is what Labor's doing. People wanted to talk about Medicare, they wanted to talk about HECS. I could really comfortably say these are these amazing things that we Labor are doing, and people really responded to that. And I didn't have to think, like I said, I didn't have to think about how to beat the Greens. I could just go out there, enjoy people, enjoy talking to them, and then present them with this is what's important to you, and this is how Labor is helping you with that. So.
Fast forward to 6 p.m. on election night, all the way through to when you finally were declared. Just give us an insight into the human side of that whole experience of waiting. Because, there was a period there when Adam Bandt was saying he did a press conference, remember, I think they said he was going to hold the seat. Just go through the highs and lows of that whole kind of waiting experience.
Well, for me, there wasn't really a high and low of it. I was very happy with the outcome, whether I just missed out or the outcome that we got. I was very happy with the team and everybody, the work we did, considering we had such a battle against, this unwinnable seat. Mm-hmm. For me, that was just, I already had won in that terms, on the night. It was the election night was a bit weird because they started off doing a Liberal Green split, even though we knew it was going to be a Labor Green split. And before they'd sorted that out, Labor had already won. So we already had that feeling of winning, and for me, I had a feeling of winning because we were, I knew we'd done well. And then, so the night sort of finished in this maybe spot, but a maybe pretty positive looking spot. And I had I knew that it was going to be closer than he was explaining. I knew that we were with a pretty good chance. And so I spent the night with the end of the night with, at Trades Hall in Melbourne here, and got a pretty good hero's welcome, which I must say I enjoyed. I didn't expect that. That was, I was told by some people in my team that I had to go, and I was like, I don't really need to. And then when I went, I was glad I did because it was a really good night, and it felt like I won, even though I hadn't yet. And then the rest of the week, the people around me had more of that up and down, whereas I was just really like, I feel like outcome has been good, whether I just missed out or whether I get on. I'm really happy with results either way. People around me were really roller coastering. Like everyone was checking in, are you going to be okay? You're okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. it's fine. So anyway, yes. And then I found out myself probably on the Wednesday night where I was, the people within the, counting floor rang me and said, yep, this is it. You got it. And I knew, even though I sort of knew, you know where it's leaning well before that, but Wednesday night was for me the 100%. Yep, it's done. And I was actually really weirdly on my own in my house. My husband had gone away. He's got family in the country, so he was visiting them, and no one was with me. And I just sort of hung up the phone. I was like, oh, what do I do now? So rung around, got on the family chat and told them all at once, and did a little bit of that. But then I still hung up the phone and I was very much on my own, so it was a bit weird. And then the next day we were going to Canberra, and so I was in Canberra, and I knew someone from Adam's team had, trying to find my number, so I knew I was getting a call from him. Yeah. and I was literally driving into Canberra, into Parliament House, when he was ringing me in a car full of Labor people, now my now colleagues, and he, sort of said congratulations and whatnot. But yeah, I guess there was the roller coaster of it, but mostly it was more the people around me that were feeling that, excitement of it and whatnot. And I was just like, well, yeah, see what happens. So,
yes, steady like a ship. It's wonderful.
yeah.
And obviously a good segue into Canberra. You're rocking up to Canberra. How has that experience been? Just trying to, meet your new colleagues, basically your new workmates, really, aren't they? And how have you found sort of the Canberra bubble?
I haven't felt more supportive in a new role ever before in my life. I mean, I've been supported in other roles, but this is next level. Every single Labor MP or senator, every single one of us, ministers, everyone have just been so helpful. Every day I've been in Canberra, there's just been a little tidbit that is like, that's really helpful, little bits here along the way from, top end to, just how to get there and how to do it. So it's been a truly amazing experience in terms of the support I've got, and to have such a big cohort of newbies all at the same time as well, and to be on such a strong winning team with us going all the way across the other side of the chamber, it feels really good. Yeah. All of that feels really good, and I've sort of joked about it, but I have literally been skipping into work, whether it's in Canberra or whether it's in Melbourne. I'm just, it's just such a great feeling to do that. And the Canberra thing there's elements of it where you're sort of you've got to be at certain places at certain times, and you in the beginning you're very worried about not being in the right place at the right time, and the newbies are all a little bit of deer in headlights, if you like, sort of working it out together. But when you're in doing it and just being a part of it, it's super exciting. My first question time, I just turned to my two colleagues on either side of me, and we were all just like, this is so exciting. We were like, yeah, it's so much fun, because we'd watched it watched it on TV and whatnot, but it's such a different feeling to be in there. I mean, it's kind of like, watching the football on the TV or being at the game in the front row, it's very, it's a much, much more thrilling experience being a part of that. So, yeah.
Even, this sounds very superficial, but even when you visit Parliament House in Canberra and you go into the two chambers, but particularly the House of Representatives, the green looks different on TV than it does in person. Yes. It's quite a striking building, and I find when I am back there and I walk into that chamber, I go, oh man, this is there's an aura about that building, and the fact that you've been elected to walk on that carpet is a pretty significant thing, really, when you think about it. I wonder if that sort of hit home for you as you sort of entered into the building itself.
It hits home every day when I walk into both the chamber or even into Parliament. When I see the flag from the distance, the goosebumps still fall coming in on my arm. And I said to someone, and I think it's true, that long as I'm still having that feeling, I'll be still doing this job. If you lose that excitement of it, being a part of something bigger and something amazing, then you shouldn't be doing it anymore. I think I'll be experiencing that every day, every time I walk in there each time.
The Canberra life can also be a bit they talk about the Canberra bubble, and it can have a toll on politicians, particularly because of the travel and the isolation. And it's like you leave from your apartment, go to the building itself, and then head back home late that night, and you don't really kind of engage with Canberrans in any kind of way, shape, or form. I mean, how do you seek to try to remain grounded as a person whilst doing this incredibly important job?
Yeah, that is true. That I haven't sort of worked out exactly how I'll continue to look after myself and that. But in terms of keeping grounded, I've got some crazy staff whose company I really enjoy, and I think they will keep each other grounded. And I think that helps when you're working with people that you do. Like working with, that makes a difference to you, whatever job you're doing. And because it is like, you don't see any part of Canberra, and you just see sometimes, you spend a lot of time in that office, which can be quite isolating. But I'll work through, how to continue keeping myself, out of that bubble, if you like, and checking on myself. But yeah, I think my staff is going to help me with that, and we'll help each other.
And what about the class of 2025? Have you found any sort of buddies? I mean, it's a huge class anyway, so you got a big, rich tapestry to choose from because we won so many goddamn seats. But is there any MPs at the moment you've sort of reached out in those first weeks of like, week and going, we're going to be friends?
Well, no, nobody. All of them, really. So there hasn't been a single person where I've gone, you know how sometimes you walk in and you just think that's your person, like you just know. I felt kind of a little bit of that with everybody, all of the newbies, and that's who we've spent most of our time with. So, the wider caucus, obviously, but the newbies is where you sort of lean into. But obviously, I sit next to Trish Cook and Emma Kuma, and so when we're in the chamber, we have the most amount of time to have a little chat to each other. Yep. But also when we also move around and talk to everybody. So there's a few people that there's nobody that I'm not getting along with. There's a few people that make me laugh are always people that I'm drawn to. So there's a few people with a good sense of humour in there that I'm, spending some time laughing with and stealing their jokes if they don't mind. Yeah.
Obviously, the Canberrans didn't get you elected. It's the good burgers of Melbourne that did. So that's your bread and butter. What are your guiding principles about how you want to be a member of parliament to represent your constituency, of which I am one of them?
Thank you. Tell me, what do I need to do? What's important to you?
Oh, geez, don't let me start.
So I had two clear purposes when I decided that I would even consider coming into politics, and that were the two things that I shared with people when I was out campaigning as well. So the first one is I've got to focus on looking after children who are experiencing disadvantage and the families that love them. So I'll always have that overriding understanding when I'm looking at any policy of any sort. And then the other one is the housing and making sure that people have a safe place to call home. Those two things are really important to me. And so I know there's other things that are important to my electorate, and the only way I'm going to really find out that is I continue to do door knocking. I do door knocking every Thursday with a team of volunteers. We go out and talk to the constituents, and we'll continue to do that. Find out what's important. That's the question that we ask: what's important to you? And then we'll hear those conversations, and that will start to form, where I really need to lean into and work in some key policy areas. But I'll always have that focus, my own personal focus of children, their families, and housing.
I loved, there was a post you put up on your Instagram account earlier in the month just saying how many people you had supported within your constituency for the month of July, 271. There's no rhyme or reason to what makes good social media content, and I guess we're always trying to grapple with that. But for me, that was just something that was that showed some accountability on your side to your community. Which I think is fantastic, and just expressing to the people you seek to represent there, hey, we're here to talk to you. And there's been some other things you've done as well in similar sort of vein of that. How important is social media for you in terms of reaching out to your constituency and having that conversation?
Well, it's a sign of the times. This is the easiest and the best way to communicate with people. People are no longer getting their news from, as we know, from newspapers and television, still a little bit in radio. So social media is really the best way to do it. And it also allows them to engage back with us as well. So we try I've got a really great social media manager. She was with me in the campaign and continues to be with me, and she makes me look good. I love it. We're, just back to what you said at the start about my post about constituents, I think that's the thing that's most surprising to me is that individual help that you can provide. I sort of saw politics and I'll be a politician as, doing all this big picture stuff, but it's actually those individual stories and those people that come in with I've got this problem with my NDIS or my immigration or whatever those individuals are dealing with, and that real them and their family, and actually we can give them real outcomes and real help. That's been really fantastic and a surprise of what I didn't expect to be doing so much of, but that's what I'm mostly doing. And the office, no, it's not all me. There's some great, like I said, I've got some great staff. They're doing it, and that, being able to help individuals has been just fantastic. And then what you see on socials is more community group help. So what I'm doing with bigger community groups, and making sure that coming from a community organisation, I know how important it was to me for a member of any member of parliament, state, federal, to represent, to say that they support me on their socials, me being the Nappy Collective, sorry. So when I do that for community groups, obviously I've gone out and I found out about them, and we work together on some outcomes for them, but also for them to have a presence on outside of their own social medias onto someone else's. It's really important for them both to get the message across about what they do, and also to get that support that they need. So I love sharing as much as I can about community groups on my socials. So if any community groups are out there and want to have reach out, particularly if you're in the seat of Melbourne, probably only. Yeah.
Last question. What surprised you in the job so far that you've enjoyed the most?
Yeah, I think that's what I sort of just mentioned before, is being able to help individuals with real problems and having real outcomes for them. So that when somebody's come in and they've got an issue that's just causing a little bit of pain for them, and being able to say, okay, we can do this, we can fix this for you, and seeing it through to an outcome. That's been both surprising and the most rewarding part of the job.
And what's been the most challenging so far?
Most challenging, I think, just setting up the office right from the start. There was a lot of, there's a lot to do all at once, and somebody said to me, you're flying the plane while you're still building it, and that's exactly what was happening. And I really feel like, and so there's been sort of, as I've sort of put my office together, we're really only into the first sort of moment where we're all together. I'm fully staffed almost, and I can really get in and do start to get those systems in place and really help more people and do it more efficiently. So yeah, it's sort of taken at least these 3 months to get to where we are, and now I look forward to doing a post of helping a lot more people.
Well, and we hope you do continue to do that great work. We're thrilled that you've been elected to the federal parliament to represent the good burghers of Melbourne, and we're so pleased to have you on the show, and we want to thank you for your time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Hey, Social Democrats, thanks for listening. Today's episode was hosted by myself, Stephen Donnelly, and produced by Grace Eyre. If you like the show, please rate us and review us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really like the show, then join our Patreon community for early and ad-free access to each episode. We regularly take questions and comments from our Patreon members, so get in there if you want to have your say. And finally, get all the latest updates and bonus content by following Socially Democratic on our social media channels. The links are in our show notes. See you next Friday.